sometimes it feels like, the biggest changes aren't the ones that make the front page. You know what I mean? It's the stuff that's happening like under the surface within these big institutions. And that's what we're looking at today. Some really interesting debate going on inside one of the main political parties.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going deep on this controversy around Senator Schumer, the Democratic minority leader in the Senate. And we're basing this on a really insightful article from the Justice Pro Network. I think a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with them. They put out some really great stuff, case studies, resources, all that, really aimed at advocacy attorneys, helping them make the connection between the law and actually making a difference for their clients.
Totally. But we're not here to, take sides or anything. It's more about understanding what's behind these calls for Schumer to step down and what this tells us about where the Democrats are at right now. And I guess even more importantly, where they might be headed, right? Mm-hmm. Especially for, folks working in the justice world, could really affect how things shake out for the communities they're working with. We want to break it all down for our listeners. Political news can be a lot to keep up with sometimes, so hopefully we can shed some light on things.
For sure. So let's jump right in. This whole thing kind of blew up because Schumer decided to get behind a bill led by Republicans. The goal was to stop the government from shutting down.
And the big problem, at least from what the Justice Pro Network is saying, is that this move basically gives more power to the Trump administration. And it could put some really important social safety nets at risk, right? Like healthcare and veterans benefits.
Right.
That's a big deal for a lot of people. I'm curious, why do you think this one bill caused such a huge reaction?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, the interesting thing is how widespread this backlash was. It wasn't just, the usual suspects making noise. The article really emphasizes that. Both liberals and moderates were angry. It seems like there's something deeper going on here, something that goes beyond the usual political divisions.
We saw that play out in the real world, too. Those protests in New York City. Pretty significant considering Schumer's been there for, forever. The article mentions people chanting, "Vote no, it's time to go." Straight to the point. How much does that kind of public pressure actually matter when it's directed at a leader like that?
I think it's definitely something they have to pay attention to. And these days, with everyone online, it's not just about street protests. The Justice Pro Network piece brings that up, too. Social media, places like X, Bluesky, TikTok, they all played a big role in spreading the word. This stuff can go viral so fast now. You know how it is.
Which leads us to, I guess you could say, one of the stars of this whole thing. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Mm-hmm. Her take on this really seemed to hit a nerve.
Oh, absolutely. The article quotes her saying it felt like a slap in the face. To the people who've been fighting for social programs. I think that really captures how a lot of people were feeling like they'd been betrayed, that their values were being compromised. But I wonder, is this just an ideological thing? Or is there more to it?
Well, the way the Justice Pro Network puts it, it seems like this goes deeper than just left versus right.
Yeah.
Like, it's raising a question about the Democrats' willingness to, really stand up for what they believe.
Exactly. And if you step back and look at the bigger picture, we're seeing this generational divide becoming more and more obvious. Younger Democrats are getting impatient. They don't like these compromises from the old guard, guys like Schumer. They want to see more backbone, I guess you could say.
No doubt. There's definitely a push for the Democrats to be more aggressive against the Trump administration's agenda. The article kind of touches on this, with the concerns around people like Elon Musk. It's like there's this sense of anxiety about the future and wanting their leaders to, take a stand. It's kind of a big deal.
Right. Absolutely. And it's not even just about specific policies. The Justice Pro Network mentions this New York Times piece. It talks about how younger Democrats are frustrated with the way their leaders are communicating, especially in this digital age. Like, they're not really getting through to people. You know what I mean?
So thinking about these reactions and all this tension within the party, what could this mean for the Democrats moving forward? The Justice Pro Network starts to get into that.
One thing that really jumps out is this idea that some members of Congress are ready to back a primary challenge against Schumer. The article mentions that. And it could be someone like AOC. For someone in his position, that's a pretty big deal. It shows just how deep these divisions run.
And it's not just coming from the progressive wing, right? The article makes that clear. This backlash is wider than that. So yeah, this could be a defining moment for the Democrats, in terms of who they want to lead them and what they want to stand for.
There's this quote from Politico that the Justice Pro Network uses. They describe Schumer's decision as a surrumber. I mean, that's pretty strong language. It raises questions about whether he can even keep the party together, especially with elections coming up and needing to support their candidates.
Right. What the article seems to be getting at is that these compromises could backfire big time. It could fire up the other side and make it even harder for Democrats to, make progress or even hold on to the seats that they have. The stakes are pretty high, for sure.
Looking ahead, the Justice Pro Network talks about what this means for the Democratic Party overall. They mention Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader. He's kind of defended Schumer, but he also made it clear that they don't agree with how Trump's running things. It's a tricky situation, trying to find that balance.
Yeah, it is. At the core of this whole thing, like the article says, is this tension between, wanting to fight harder and not giving in so easily. A lot of Democrats are kind of waking up to that, you could say.
It's forcing them to really think about some big questions. Can they deal with this generational divide? Can they find a way to agree on a strategy and still present a united front? And can they get behind candidates who represent what the Justice Pro Network calls fresh energies? People who can connect with a wider range of voters.
The way the Justice Pro Network puts it, this is a reckoning for the Democrats. I think that sums it up well. It reflects the struggles we're seeing all over American politics, this fight over who they are and how to move forward in a world that's changing so fast.
In the end, the article argues that activists and party leaders have to think about the long game. What does Schumer's leadership mean for their chances in future elections? Can they still be effective in fighting for what they believe in? It's a pretty big decision with a lot riding on it.
So for our listeners, especially the folks working in the advocacy legal world, there's a lot to unpack here. We've seen this pretty intense conflict blow up within the Democratic Party, and at the heart of it are these generational differences and disagreements about how to approach politics. The long-term consequences for the party are definitely worth keeping an eye on. It could go a lot of different ways.
And if we think about the people the Justice Pro Network is really focused on, the advocacy attorneys working to protect vulnerable communities, this stuff has a real impact on them, too. The way these internal battles within the parties play out can affect social justice issues and the rights of the people they represent. Changes in who's in power, those shifts in priorities, it all filters down and affects the policies and legal protections that these attorneys are fighting for every day.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a really crucial point, especially for the advocacy attorneys listening. In times like these, when things are so uncertain politically and the focus seems to shift all the time, your work becomes even more important. You're the ones with the expertise and the drive to navigate these choppy waters, and your advocacy is absolutely vital.
It really makes you think, As an advocacy attorney, how do you see these internal party dynamics playing out in the bigger fight for justice? And how will it affect your ability to advocate for the people you represent? It's something to really consider. Understanding these struggles within the parties and what they could lead to, that's essential for being effective in this work. That's how we move towards a more just society, and that's what this is all about.